Okay, we'll get things started on the public service agenda. I have a pass out here. I'm going to go over a few things here briefly. I guess we're going to have a little presentation on meter reading by Ferguson Waterworks in the center. So we will discuss that briefly here, but I want to go through a few things first. We had a couple recent main breaks, one on Radian Drive. Basically had two water main breaks on Radian and one on South 30th Street behind Olive Garden. Some of it down Radian was kind of challenging because it's so flat down there, and when the water main breaks, there's no place to get rid of the water. So if you look at some of the pictures here, the next three pictures shows a little bit of the ponding, a little bit what's going on as far as the initial break. But they got fixed pretty quick. We also had one on South 30th Street, not South 30th Street, yeah, South 30th Street, behind Olive Garden. That occurred about midnight on a Sunday night. I had a little bit of trouble locating some of the valves that went back to Lowe's. So that kind of slowed things up a little bit. I think John was concerned because he couldn't get it shut down. But we got that one repaired too. So can't say enough about the distribution crew. Those guys are good workers, and they take their job real serious and have done a great job.
So I've got another packet. One first item.
What's that?
Do you have another packet?
I think
yeah, you went right after they were here. Sorry, what everybody to me?
Plant improvement updates. The final punch list is close to completion. The mayor wanted me to bring that up to you. Basically, everything's done on the upgrade at the water plant that started in 2013. We have a new clarifier, new high surface pump with VFDs. SCADA update completed with new technology allowing for most vendors to work on the systems. So, what's really nice about, I just want to briefly bring it up, is the new drives on the clarifier. Got rid of the chain drives that were built in 1956, 1957. We increased the capacity about 200,000 gallons per day by upgrading with the clarifier. So we're right at about 4.4 MGD maximum capacity every day. Our average is about 1.5, 1.6. The high service pumps, we installed the variable frequency drives on the high service pumps, so we have the ability to up pressure and up gallons per minute on both of the new high service pumps. And then the SCADA system we updated so that we aren't using Motorola anymore. We have the ability to use different vendors to do repairs on the SCADA system now. So that works out really nice. Next thing I kind of want to mention in water is filter media. Filter media was recently tested on the air wash portion of the water plant by Bauer and Warner Incorporated due to the efficient air wash system that was installed during the year of 1998. It was determined that the effective size of 0.54 to 0.55 and the uniform coefficient of 1.3. This is within the recommended standards, so we're going to wait to replace the filter media. Probably have it tested again in another 2 to 3 years. So that's kind of nice. We thought that we was going to have to replace all the filter media, and we actually cored the filter in different locations, and then we sent those samples away to a laboratory that tests subsurface materials, and then they do the test on it to check the uniformity coefficient and the effective size. In fact, we found out that we were within tolerances, so that's going to kind of help on budgets. budget lines this year. That's basically all I have on water. I'm going to talk briefly on wastewater. Project that Nick's been working on a little bit for us, and all the guys at the wastewater plant have been doing a really good job. Stormwater sanitary sewer cross connection was determined by initially testing the storm drains with dye, then confirming with recent videos of the cross connection in the area of South 30th Street. Heath Utilities Department will be working with the landowner to properly hook the system up to stormwater systems. It is prohibited by City Ordinance 929.03H. No storm water or roof water leaders shall be at any time led into the connection with the sanitary sewer or sanitary sewer service connection. So basically what we have is on the storm drains are tied directly into the sanitary sewer on 30th Street. That was a project that was done years ago. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but there was some storm pondage taking place right on the south side of the railroad tracks on 30th Street, and Heath and Newark went together to help solve that problem. Newark ran a 24-inch stormwater line from the north side underneath the railroad tracks into the close to Heath area. The only problem is they connected all the storm drains up except one. And if you look at the pictures here on the wastewater storm, you'll notice on the first picture you'll see a storm drain that comes out of the side of the bank. Then it comes down that hill there into this drain on the second picture. Before you see this on the first picture, before you see the storm coming out of there, there's 3 other storm catch basins identical to the bottom of this picture that leads to this storm drain. And this storm pipe goes directly into this storm drain. So basically, if you're familiar with the ice cream store back there, the soft serve, all that area in the back there, the dairy aisle, not the dairy aisle, but there's a little road behind the dairy aisle and everything where the businesses are. That's all that storm water is tied into the sanitary sewer.
Behind Newark Auto Lab, is that right?
That's correct. Give you a little background on that. In 1974, when the car wash was put in, there was a lift station put there to carry the sanitary into the city of Heath. And in the 1980s, early 1980s, we took that lift station over. The city did. And then in about 2000 and when did we update it? 2001
Or 2.
2001 or 2, we updated the lift station. Well, we're not sure exactly what the process was or how this got tied in. It could have been moonlighted in. It could have been tied in from the very beginning originally. We're not sure what took place, but basically we have a cross connection between stormwater and sanitary sewer. And you know, I kind of mentioned it that, you know, I mean, we had always had problems with the lift station becoming overwhelmed when we get call outs. And then I was told always that had always been checked with smoke detection, and nothing ever showed up. Am I correct, Nick?
I was told I didn't see the smoke test.
This was before me and Nick.
I wasn't involved in the smoke test.
So anyway, it kept happening. So then I asked Nick and the guys, I said, could you please just go over there and just kind of run some dye tests and see what's going on? So they ran some dye tests, and sure enough, they put it down the storm drain where this picture is at the bottom, and it came right into the lift station. So now we're working with the homeowner to determine if Newark's stormwater has the capacity to take this additional stormwater, and hopefully they do, and then find out if we can gravity it from this location to their stormwater. And we're going to have to do a little study with probably Jones and Henderson to see if that's going to be capable of happening.
Who's responsible for that? The landowner? So they'll have to do the study to see if that's also compatible, or we, or do you?
Personally, I think to help the landowner out, he's going to have the full burden of the connection and digging it up and all that. Since he really didn't know about it and everything, I would like to at least see what the capabilities are of it happening. before. I haven't contacted the landowner or anything yet. Well, actually I did. He would happen to be out there the day that we were doing some testing and stuff. We actually ran a camera last week down everything to verify the dye testing, make sure that, and sure enough, it's tied.
How far does he have to go to tell you?
I'm guessing, what do you think, Nick? Maybe 100 feet?
I think a lot more than
I'm
that.
thinking that.
Yeah,
Maybe a couple.
I think
I was thinking it was more toward the front.
I think we end up running complete length of from the very furthest one all the way.
Probably from where the ice cream dairy aisle is to 30th Street. It's just on that side of the street, I think. So that's where the kid. So it's gonna cost him. And the thing of it is we will tell him that he has a certain length of time to have it completed, and then it has to be severed. And so that's a story. The last thing I want to talk about briefly in wastewater. Yeah, I want to thank the guys for checking into everything on this and doing a good job. This what's nice about this is when you find out that you have cross connections like this. I'm guessing that we're probably anywhere from 60 to 80,000 gallons a rain event could possibly be going into the sanitary sewer, maybe higher than that. I don't know. That's just kind of a rough estimate by how long the pumps run, and knowing that that those pumps are trying to carry that away. And, so.
Trying to put this in New York's stormwater. How does that fit with their whole mandated stormwater?
Well, they're mandated by the EPA trying to get rid of this. They're trying to separate the storm and sanitary sewer.
I think what Jeff's saying is in Newark they have stormwater utility charge, and we don't. So,
but that's another question I haven't checked into yet. I don't know if they're being charged a stormwater utility because they're actually on our utilities. They're on Heath water and sewer, unless North charges them some way back through. I didn't really check with Denise yet to see if that's put on there some way. As far as I know, it's not, but it could be.
how far back was that work done on the intersection where we worked with Newark?
In Mr. Dubs' first term, when he just first took
Right
over
about
the
2000, right around that time.
Yes, late 90s.
Yeah. Okay. I'm wondering if there was. Newark didn't have their stormwater utility in place at that time, did they, Tim?
No.
Okay, so it probably wouldn't have been anything that would even have been addressed as part of that cooperative agreement to do that work there. And I don't know.
I think the original intent was to hook all the stormwater up in that area. That's why they ran a 24-inch line over there. But why, whether it was just
and what
this
Newark
or,
has right now is since they did that work, Newark implemented a stormwater utility that says if you pay so much, I think it's based on the amount of property or something like that that you have. I would assume that if you're putting stormwater in Newark's utility, they're going to want to charge them, but they're not in the city limits of Newark. They're in the city limits of Heath. I don't know.
Well,
I don't have an answer. I'm
probably
just telling you
gonna
what's
be-
problem.
There's probably going to be some charge there, I would think. Wouldn't you, Tim?
Yeah, I don't know, because we did an agreement, Newark and Heath, to get that water problem solved and everything, and it was sized to do the drainage area, so I assume it's big enough to handle it. It's just a matter of how it gets there. But I don't know, subsequent to that, the charges, I don't know if they would charge them or not. I don't know.
Hopefully they don't have to have some kind of a lift station or something to lift it to the storm sewer, because if they do, it could get pretty expensive.
Shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be.
They did a study back then,
Yeah.
and we
Well,
were here.
the intent was to drain 30th Street.
Yeah.
30th Street always flooded. The intent was to drain 30th Street. Now, what water subsequent to that was then all of a sudden drained towards 30th Street that used to maybe go a different direction? Because, before they built all those buildings there, it might have just soaked into the ground a
Well,
lot of it.
and the fact is,
So-
clearly, the stormwater sewer pipe is lower than the storm drain, right? So kind of like the elbow that you have in your kitchen drain, okay?
Trapping it.
Yeah. Water is not gonna, it'll go in that storm drain. It's not gonna back up here.
Well, let's hope. I mean, we got to think. There's got to be some surveying done to make sure. But yeah, I hope. Hope it does. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, gravity's gonna, it's gonna push it. Now, there may be water laying in a pipe all the time, like I said, in your kitchen sink.
What we'll do is we'll do the inverts on both the Storm and Newark and this one, and then we'll determine how. I mean, I'm sure it'll flow. It should, but
I'm saying that I can't see why you need to have.
I mean, I would have thought when they ran that storm in that they would have taken all that into consideration.
Well, remember the storm it ties into in Newark was only a certain depth. You know what I mean? So you can only start at that depth and come this way.
Right.
So
let's hope.
it was, you know, but it mainly to drain the street.
Is there anything in those buildings that would require Heath or Newark to do an inspection for implementation of P&Ds, anything like that that might generate administrative costs?
Not that I know of, no.
If there's nothing, then it's probably straightforward. I would hope so.
I hope so too.
A lot of them is they just want to get rid of it.
You used to drive through there and that would be a couple feet deep, I think, at one time. Yeah. Anyway, anyone have any questions on water and wastewater that we just discussed? Okay. What I want to do now is
You want to talk about EPA stuff?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I do want to talk about EPA. We did have a slight, a few, not problems, but a few minor infractions with our EPA inspection of the wastewater plant. Everything went really smooth down there. There was a couple things in the lab that we needed to do a few extra paperwork on, but overall they thought everything at the wastewater plant was really good. It was functioning very well. All of our records and everything were up to date. So the guys did another excellent job at the plant there. Dan Stofan and Jack Brown met with the EPA. I met with them briefly too, but everything looks really good. So I was very happy with that. We haven't got exactly everything back yet from the survey itself, but from everything that I was told and everything, it went really well. So we're treating the wastewater very well, and our effluent and everything is good. So. Okay, I guess now the mayor sat in on a meeting with me last week for the company that we are thinking about using for meter reading. And what this, kind of briefly explain to you what this is we would have the capabilities to get meter readings here at the City Hall. And no one would have to go out and read them. They would come directly into here. We do have one third of the city now was drive-by, but what we wanted to do is the additional 2/3 we were wanting to put in on a fixed base unit.
So you'd still have the 1/3.
Yes. That's kind of what I would like to do, and then as we start replacing that into 1/3, like batteries start wearing out, different things on the MXUs there, we would convert over to the fixed base system. What I really liked about Senator, who's going to give a demonstration here, was the value of the fixed network system, meter reading system, is meter reading costs, gas, man hours, final reads, meter reading checks. I kind of did a quick cost of what per year us going around and collecting meter readings by going around to every individual house. We have to, on 2/3 of the city, we have to go up to the house and actually take a reading. 1/3 of the city, we have what we call, it's a radio read, but you actually have to take a gun and point it at the house. Now sometimes they'll work like that, and we don't have any problems with them, but sometimes you gotta back up, or you have to go forward. Sometimes you have to go up in the driveway. Sometimes you have to activate it that way. Sometimes you have to walk up toward the bill, to activate it. So we've had some difficulty with that. So I'm guessing somewhere between $40,000 to $55,000, somewhere in there a year, that we spend on gasoline and man hours and so forth, reading meters. Another thing I like about the system is you have better utilization of manpower. In other words, instead of them reading meters 4 or 5 days out of every month, they could use that to help, turn valves in the city or do hydrant maintenance, or, we are backlogged on regular maintenance that needs to be done. So I don't really see this as far as cutting back on manpower, but I could see it actually helping us not have to get more manpower to help in the future. So I think it would stabilize us having to hire anyone else at this point. Customer service is more reliable and consistent readings, greater customer satisfaction. When you pull this, and I'll have Noah and Brian explain this a little bit better to you, but when you pull these, you can pull it up to, I think, every hour and get a meter reading. So when all the meter readings come in, instead of taking like a 4 or 5 day period, it'll be read at that time of day, everybody. So their meter readings are going to be more consistent, which I think would be fantastic. And if I leave stuff out, I'm sure you guys will tell me what I'm left leaving out. Asset management, meter reading errors, non-revenue water due to leaks. What's kind of neat about this is if you get a large meter reading, and we're pulling this every hour or every couple times a day, if you're like, you can set a percentage of, if it's like 20% over what they normally use, or 30%, right away, it flags it. We can call them up and say, hey, it's in the middle of the winter. Maybe maybe they had a freeze up inside. Maybe there's nobody there. It's been running. Has anyone checked your pipes lately? Because you're using a lot of water. That's the kind of thing that this could really help. So it's good for conservation management, different things like that, water waste. I do want to bring out that this is something that we've been working on all these years. I don't know how many years we've been doing it, but we've got like 1/3 of the city done on what is the drive-by system. I think we're reaching the point where we need to move forward on this and start spending money on getting to a fixed base system. Newark's on a fixed base system. Hebron is on a fixed base system. Buckeye Lake is on a fixed base system. Johnstown is on a fixed base system. So there's definitely some value there. That's why we need to pursue this. So I'll go ahead and let these gentlemen give a demonstration. We have Ferguson Waterworks, which is rep, and we have Center, which is the manufacturer. Both gentlemen are here to kind of run through a few things with us on that.
Sean? All right, so I'm Noah Dew with Zenner, and this is Brandon Pontius with Ferguson. And what we kind of like to do for you this evening is just take you through and do a demonstration of what the capability of fixed network is. So, as John said, historically, meter reading is done by walking up and taking the reading from the house, or by driving around and collecting the reading. So the drive-by systems are generally referred to as AMR, or automated meter reading. Fixed network is referred to as AMI, or advanced meter infrastructure. And essentially what that means is we're not having to spend any time and resources going out and collecting the meter reading data. With the fixed network AMI system, that data is rolling in all the time, so meter reading really becomes a byproduct of getting that information every hour of every day. So I just wanted to take you through and show you kind of what that looks like. So this is actually real-time data. This is a live system. and we'll go through and see what some of the advantages of having a fixed base system. So this is the website that you would be using through customer service and also your meter reading group and anybody else who needs access to this sort of information. So you log into the website, and let's say that a customer calls, and I like picking up Burger King in this system, so we'll use Burger King. If a customer calls up and they have a question, you can just come here, and as you start typing, it will filter the accounts there for you. So then we can see, okay, here's the Burger King, and I'm going to right-click on it and tell it that I want to see daily usage. And so very quickly, we're able to come in and see that meter reading data that we're collecting. So what you're seeing here is about 40 days worth of meter reading information. So just very, very quickly, and then you can email that to your customer while they're on the phone without having to go up and check. You can just see their trending. And let's say that you want to take a look at an individual date. We can come in and we'll select that we want to see the hourly usage data from, let's say, August, looks like 30th or so. We had some high usage, so we'll tell 30th, and we'll see. Go. And so, just like that, we can see what they've done on a particular date. And then we can also email this out to them. And the reason that I bring up Burger King is because it was very helpful for us. They come in and said, you know, our bill is about 30% higher than what it usually is. And they said, well, you know, your usage has gone up. You know, they pulled it up and looked at it and said, you know, you're using that water. And they said, well, you just don't really think we are. So the village goes out, and they're going around, and they see a coffee machine with a half-inch line that's just running off down into a drain, and they say, well, that's probably the cause of the problem right there. And the guy's like, that's a half-inch line. There's no way that it used that much water. I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, I tell you what, why don't you have it repaired, and then sometime after it's been repaired, call us, and we'll tell you exactly what day that you got it repaired and exactly what time you got it repaired. So they get it fixed, they call up, they pull up the graph, and they say, you got it fixed on Tuesday between 1 and 2 in the afternoon. And the guy's like, yeah, we did. And they go, all right, I told you that's what it was. So they really couldn't argue, but you know, in the past, it's been difficult to resolve those disputes because they don't have, customers typically don't want to believe that, you know, that much water can be used, especially, you know, from a leaking toilet, which it produces a whole lot more loss than what people expect. So when you're able to show them what that usage looks like and say, look, you fixed it, and look at your usage, they really don't have much of an argument anymore. So that's what we do with the data most frequently is we look at the customer's consumption. But another thing that's really nice about this is if you have somebody that comes in for a final, you're no longer having to roll a truck to produce a final reading for that customer. You can pull it up here. And we nationally estimate that it's about $35 or so to, you know, to send the truck out to do something like that. So we're now saving that expense just because we can come in and we can grab that information at any time. And again, we save that expense a lot with disputes as well, because we're able to produce the graphs here. You know, if the customer comes in, it only takes, you know, a minute to pull that information out. If the customer calls, you know, a minute, and you got the information in their hands, and they can see what that usage has been. It's a very powerful tool, and I think historically these types of systems haven't been accessible to smaller utilities. It's generally been much larger cities that have been able to do it. And only in the recent years have the cost come down enough to where you're looking at a very similar cost for a fixed network system. And historically, what you would have to do is construct big, large towers at pretty significant expense, anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000 per tower. And now we've brought those infrastructure costs down with the methodology that we use, to where it's substantially less, $4,500 the most for the infrastructure that's needed for something like this. So in a lot of cases, we can be within 5 to 10% of the cost of a drive-by system. And a drive-by system, the only thing that you're really doing for yourself is reducing the amount of time that you're spending metering. you're not getting the customer service benefits. You're not able to see consumptions in the same way that you are here. You're not able to be alerted to problems in a situation like this with the fixed network. If you have customers who have a leak, we can come in and we can tell them we want, you know, I don't think you like the glass or the tabletop. So here we can come in, we can run a leak report, and we can see these are customers that have had water running for at least 24 consecutive hours. So as soon as a situation like that is detected, we can get in contact with the customer and alert them that this is happening before it extends, 20 or 30 days into their billing cycle and reducing their bill. But also, I don't know if you guys do drive downs, but that sort of goes away. I think most places allow you to report claim every 2 years or something like that. So that now goes away. You wouldn't necessarily need to do that because we can alert them to that situation. But it's also very helpful in the winter time if you have a pipe bust in a house, and we're able to see that information here as well, so we can alert them, or just go out and shut the water off before substantial damage is done to the home. So a lot of advantages for getting the data in a near real-time fashion versus still collecting the data one time every 30 days. And so for a lot of cases, we can be very, very close to the same price as what you pay for a drive-by. As a matter of fact, we put a quote together a little while ago for a town of 650 meters. They were looking at a drive-by system. They were $10,000 less than a competitor's drive-by system for a full fixed network where you get those readings. And the advantage, just to give you an idea of how much information you're collecting, if you have 3,000 meters in a system, and you're driving by collecting the meter readings, that's 3,000 readings every 30 days. In the same 30 days, we can get you about 2.1 million readings for very near the same price.
As you can imagine, with the number of rentals that we have in the city, we do get a fair share of calls from people who are looking to have their water turned off, go out there, to the property, get a final meter reading so that we can finalize their bill. So the ability for Denise, who typically will handle those, Denise and Jenny, to be able to, basically real time say, okay, here's your final usage amount, we'll get your final bill out to you, without us having to send people out there to take that final meter reading. Will save the customer time, would save us money. And also, we do, in a number of instances, proactively contact customers where we see quite a spike in usage. It, as was said, unfortunately, you can't even do that until after the fact, after the water has been used. A lot of times it's a situation where maybe there are elderly residents in the property, and they might just simply have a toilet that's running slow and just constantly slowly running, and they don't hear that toilet doing that, and so they don't understand why all of a sudden they normally have 3 units of water in a month and now they're looking at 30 units of water. And so we tell them to kind of check things like that, but unfortunately it's after the fact. If there's a system in place where we can potentially nip those in the bud sooner, I think our residents would from time to time see an advantage.
Where would the reader be if the information?
It'll be just like we have now. The MXU is on the meter, on top of the meter.
Where would it be read? Here, over?
It would be read in City Hall, but and Noah can explain things better, but there's a transmitter. And another thing that I liked about the system a lot was the mesh system, and they'll explain that to you. and how that works. But yeah, it would come right into City Hall, right at the Denise's desk. Okay, and she'd pull it up. It'd just be like going on the web. And she'll pull it up and it'll have the information on there.
And if there's an excess usage, then there's a beep or something that she knows, or?
We have reports that generate, so we generate alerts for those things, and you can find those alerts in various reporting tools or have the system contact you when those alerts arise.
You guys put new meters in your solar system?
No, sir. We can interface with the existing water meters.
That's what kind of attracted me to the center, was that they had the ability to latch on to our existing meters. So we don't have to go through the expense of changing out all of our meters. I'm not saying that we eventually you're going to have to change your meters out because they get worn out. But we can get up and we can get things running pretty quick. And like they said, is what we're spending on these drive-by MXUs now, we can have this fixed base system here at City Hall for the same cost as what we're spending on the drive-by ones.
Yeah. And we will normally get, if I remember correctly, normally we get about 100 or so drive-by units a year.
Yeah.
And kind of install them, and so we've kind of been crawling at the pace of going away from the manual reading and going to the drive-by. Implementing this system, of course, would be more of an upfront cost, clearly, because we would take everybody off of the manual reads, and all of those would go on to this system. So what we would be left with would be approximately a third of our customers on the drive-by system and 2/3 of our customers on this system. And I don't know, is there, oh, I'm skipping ahead from you a little bit. There's a map in here that of the city that they took a look, and they know who's on our drive-by and who's on our manual read systems. Most of the customers on the manual read systems are in the dense residential areas of the city.
A lot of the east side is on the drive-by because the homes are more spread out. So the east side of town is mainly the third that are on drive-by.
You say dogs and things like that. We got vicious dogs in the country, pretty much.
Yeah. You have that, or you have a lane that goes back to a house. Or
The map that I was talking about was back towards the back. Looks like that.
You talking about changing all the MXUs eventually, or?
yeah, eventually all of them would have to be changed out. We would do that in time. But
Salvage value of all the units we bought over there?
Maybe, depending on the age. There are other utilities that might like to happen to replace units that have failed in their systems.
Well, I think you might have answered my question, but it was, can you set up the server to do analysis and send you flags for spot computer analysis, find a problem with this resident because of this?
Yes. We can also, we make all of the data that we collect exportable, so you can create CSV files or Excel files, and then you can have that data in that sort of format to be used with Access. We've seen people build some pretty amazing stuff in Excel to show trending. I have a company out in Denver, they do steam metering. And so they need to know about how much steam to produce, every hour of the day. And they take all of our information, they put it into Excel, and they do trending, and they keep that for 5 years. So they can see about what they're going to need to do, and they can forecast the amount of steam that needs to be produced to support their customers. So, pretty nifty what they were able to do. I'm not that good at Excel, but we do make everything exportable, and then we also have our built-in reports too, that have the ability to alert you to things like tamper or situation or reverse flow.
what I kind of had in mind, I'm hoping maybe we could make this happen. But instead of just trudging along like we did when we ordered, $10,000 to $15,000 for these MHUs that are still antiquated, not really used, I would honestly like to see us get to a point where we could put a substantial amount of money, maybe $100,000 a year until the city's done that. It should be done in about 3.5 years. But like $50,000 from wastewater, $50,000 from water, it would go into the system every year. What I want to really bring up was that our personnel can install these in all the meters. And believe me, they'll get installed pretty quick if they realize they don't have to go out and read meters. You'd be surprised how fast they can do next year. So that's a good point, I think, too. Correct?
Oh, yeah. We had a 3-year project in Johnstown, and that lasted for about 5 months before they just said, well, we like it, and we're going to go ahead and finish it.
Now you do, Keith the auditor here, Keith Alexander here, and I asked him to sit in on this meeting briefly, but you may want to interject maybe you do offer some payment plans.
We do. So the way that works is a company out there called Government Capital Corporation, and they do municipal lending almost exclusively. But essentially, the way that it works is it's a lease, a pay-to-own type of financing. So it doesn't count against the city's borrowing abilities, and the collateral. The equipment acts as collateral for this. So what they try to do is they try to make it to where you can have a cash positive project from the beginning. So the interest rate will be 3 to 3.5% currently, and there's no payment for the first year. So what they do is they see that when we do return on investment, then the return is going to be X amount of dollars per month, and they structure the length of the financing to make the payment less than what the projected return is per month. So that, and again, and defer payment for the first year. So that way the system is actually paying for itself over the life of it. And we generally expect to produce a positive net present value of the project in 7 years or so, with the system being, I suspect personally that it should last 13 years. And we actually use a 15-year battery. But in the decade that I've been doing this, I think you would really expect a few years less, so about the 13-year mark.
When you say if the battery goes out, you say the cost of the battery is about $25?
Yes. So we're the only manufacturer that I'm aware of that produces a product like this that has a field replaceable battery. So it's pretty much industry standard to do a 20-year warranty. We do 10 years where it's full, complete coverage. If something happens to you, then we get rid of it. And then we do 10 years of proration. But the proration was kind of a sneaky thing that was introduced by a company some years back to get you to buy the system again. And so we don't really like, forcing people into something like that. So we give you the option. We offer the prorated. If you want to buy a new unit at a prorated rate, great, fine, we do that. But we also give you the less expensive option, which is to replace the batteries in the field. So the unit is designed, the bottom plate comes off, the batteries come out, put 2 new batteries in, and it's good to go, hopefully for another 13 years.
Center is a German-based company that's been in existence for how long?
They started in 1903.
And how long have they been in this?
U.S. market, I believe, since August of 2011. But we have a sister company that's been here since 2005. They are the largest sub-metering company in the world. But basically for sub-metering, they go in and they put meters in individual apartment units and then provide the billing, customer service, bill collection, all that stuff for the property management company. And they also do about 70% of all the U.S. military housing in the country. Again, they provide the meter, they provide the meter reading system, they do the billing, they do the customer service, they do the collection, and they just write a check to whoever the customer is.
And another thing, we kept spending money or trying to get this thing done. And like Noah said, the ability, the costs came down on these systems a lot more than what they had in the past. So I think we're going to reap the benefits of cost reduction by jumping in on this. And then also, I think it seems like a really good system because it's compatible with what we've already got now already.
It also, if I could just on that note, it also gives you the ability, we are a meter manufacturer as well, and we like for you to go with our meter, but with the system, we don't lock you into any sort of a meter. So if you wanted to put your meters up for bid every year, you have the freedom to do that, and the flexibility of the system will work with any meter that's being put currently. So the other thing that's really nice about this, as opposed to your drive-by system, what you put in today will not be the same thing that you have in the ground 6 months from now. So it's full two-way communication, and that allows us to send out updates to the unit. So let's say 5 years from now, a new meter comes out, and you guys decide that you want to start deploying that meter. We can update the unit and give it the functionality to support that meter remotely without you having to go and visit them. So we can update these as time goes by to provide new functionality. And we built in room to retain into the product. So when you wire it to meter, we only have 3 wires. We included 7 wires because who knows what's going to be available in the future.
Please, I'm sorry, hold on a second, because I need to take off the big high. I apologize. I need to take off. Just a couple things real quick, because we met last week, John, was it last week? Yeah, last week, with them, and they reviewed all this information with me. I think that, for years now, we have identified that we want to get away from the manual meter reading business. We have been approaching it at a snail's pace. If we continue with what we're doing, we're going to reach a point where we're going to be installing something new that's just about obsolete. This is the first time this type of a system has been around before, but this is the first time that I have heard that we could actually implement a system like this on a unit-by-unit cost that is comparable, if not a little bit less, than the process that we have been following now for a number of years. And so, we need to be mindful of the return on investment on this. When John talks about having the ability to free up work time to work on water system maintenance, that excites me as well. We are not exercising valves on our main lines as frequently as we need to. For doing the hydrant maintenance that needs to be done. Our system is not old, but parts of it are not new. And if we're going to continue to get the maximum life out of the valves that we have and hydrants that we have, we need to get on top of maintaining it. And I would prefer not to add head count to do that. I would also prefer not to have the added expense of replacing valves and such prior to when we could have replaced them. There's a number of factors that really intrigue me about this, and so I think that we ought to give this serious consideration and analysis in trying to implement this system. Okay? Thanks, guys. I'm sorry.
My question was, I've had condos and every year developed here and big apartment complexes. Do you have a thing that you could sell them that would separate each tenant?
Absolutely.
So we've had problems with that before.
We can absolutely do that. You can put meters in each of the individual units with the radios, and then within the system you can come in, you can actually group things together. So if you wanted to create a group just for a particular property, you can definitely do that and have that information show up just all by itself instead of show up with all the rest of the meter needs.
You gave estimates of possible cost savings for item 1. It sounds like there'd be cost savings for item 2 as far as reallocation manpower. For item 4, looks like there's possibility there. Have you had time to do a guesstimate to what cost savings you can get out of those various items?
I kind of did, because we were having them come in, the $40,000 to $50,000 a year cost savings was kind of off the top of my head. I mean, it could be a lot larger than that, but that's what I kind of thought were at least that. I don't know, I may be wrong, but I don't know if you run into this more than I do, or what other cities have saved overall. But I think not only the cost savings, but redirecting the manpower on other tasks is big. I mean, it frees those guys up to run maybe water lines that we could possibly run to other locations. It frees them up for maintenance. It frees them up for a lot of things. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with our distribution crew, but when they come in the morning, they start working, and they walk in the door, and they don't stop till they leave at night. And John keeps them very busy all the time. And so there's not a lot of room. Basically, this is going to help them get more maintenance type work done. Noah, I want you to just explain real quickly, and I know we want to get out of here by 6:30, but I wanted you to explain the mesh system and how it repeats, how it works and sends a signal.
So, the data that we're showing you here is really not unique to us. Everybody with a fixed network system, that's really what that's really what we're all trying to provide you with, the same information. The thing that sets the companies apart are the methodologies and the way that the system works. So if you guys will take a look in your brochure, I think it's on the 3rd page. I'll show you what really makes the system unique to us, and what I feel is probably our strongest. Oh, I'm sorry. The blue one. Yeah, sorry. This one here.
Oh, the other.
And then I think it's on the 4th page.
Blue. Yeah, that would be
there.
Okay.
So to describe what we do is we would put up devices called a collector, and basically it's about a box that's this big. It can be mounted indoors, it can be mounted outdoors, and that is connected to the internet, either using an existing network. So if we use this facility, we can just plug into the network here, or we have the ability to do cellular. So we have more flexibility. I typically don't advocate for using a cellular because it's going to add $30 a month to the cost, and which takes away from the overall value of the project over the long run. So we're flexible enough that in most cases we can get away from it. So the collector goes in, and for the system here we would have 2 of those devices. I believe that we end up with 2, right?
Yes.
Okay. So excellent. So the 2, and that gives us redundancy for the system. So if one of those collectors goes down, the units recognize that. So most of the systems that you're going to see out there today are what's called line of sight, or point to point, meaning that each individual meter has to talk to a tower. So the towers can get hugely expensive, and they have to be positioned in just the exact right place to support the environment, and they don't typically allow for growth. As trees grow, that can impact the line of sight that you have. And so what we do to combat that, and what we do to reduce the cost, is we utilize what's called a mesh network technology. And the mesh was developed by military for radio communication. What we do, obviously, is we take the readings from the meters, but what you can see in the illustrations on that page is the unit will try to go directly to the collector when at all possible. But if that path is not available, it recognizes that it's not available, and instead will send its message to one of its neighbors, another house nearby, who will then pass that message along. And they can go through those hops to end up reaching the collector. So it gives us a whole lot of flexibility. And what's really interesting is we can see where the units are communicating, who's communicating with who. When you look at a system in the wintertime, you'll see that maybe it'll take each unit will take a more direct path. But then as spring comes and the leaves and the trees start filling in, they start blocking those paths, you'll see them reroute automatically. So it's self-configuring and it's self-healing. We don't have to tell it to do any of that. And the way that it knows how to do this is because it utilizes a two-way communication. So if I send a message, I expect to get a confirmation message back to whomever I was sending that message to. But then I also expect that I'm going to get a confirmation message back from the collection point. So I know that my data is reaching the collector and coming in. And if it's not, then I'll change and I'll do something different. So if a unit in the field goes down or somebody parks a car over one, something like that, they automatically recognize that the path has changed or the environment has changed, and we'll figure out a way to work around it. So for us, having that capability provides redundancy. So the president of the company is very big on having everything be redundant. He was telling a story about just after college, he was trying to get his pilot license, and the carburetor froze on a little single-engine plane, and he plummeted from the sky. Was able to recover, but he said, never again will I get in a plane with just one engine. So we have redundancy built in for everything. So we also utilize an unlicensed band, and when we're sending our messages out, we're actually sending on up to 50 different frequencies, so that we don't have to worry about interference from other devices. So it utilizes frequency hopping spread spectrum, which means that basically they can choose any one of those frequencies in a range of 902 to 928, which is unlicensed, to move the messages around. And it's also quite a smart device in that regard because it has a spectrum analyzer in each of the collectors. So it can look around and it can see what frequencies are getting the most traffic, and then it can tell the endpoints to avoid those frequencies and to transmit on the less used frequencies to optimize our efficiency and to keep us moving.
When I called Johnstown to find out a little bit about the system, one of their collectors, I think, tell me if I'm wrong.
It was the repeater.
The repeater was down, and they didn't even know it because it was routing itself around and coming in another way from meter to meter to get the reading. So they didn't even realize that they were having problems with the system because it's so redundant on how it gets the meter readings.
So in a city like ours that's got a lot of hills and valleys, then that should not be a problem.
No, we actually the example that you would see for the return on investment was obviously our best case scenario, but that was in Colorado in a very snowy place where they were only able to read the meters maybe twice a year. So when they had leaks and things, they weren't able to see it. But very mountainous area, heavily wooded, tremendous amounts of snow, and we work those. We have the ability, so if you need to expand, for example, we have the ability to come in and just put up another device called a repeater, or you could even use these devices as repeaters to help in those areas where maybe you have higher traffic, or maybe it's more heavily wooded, something like that. So we can just add little pieces of infrastructure to the system to overcome those things. But normally, from what I've seen being here, this is no problem at all. We have systems like in the Malibu area, there's canyons and hills and all sorts of fun stuff there. So
I did want to mention briefly too, and we're getting close to running out of time. What I wanted to mention was that we are currently with a company called Census. And we've used Census meters forever. When they were Rockwell. Rockwell became Census. And we did that because over the years we didn't want to have to carry around a bunch of different parts to repair a meter. You heard these stories of, you go to this one community and they got all these different parts and they got to try to repair them and all that. The meters aren't quite that way anymore, and I think you guys kind of explained that to me. We could very well change to Zener meters. What kind of Census, I did have Census in, I don't know if you guys know it or not, but I had Census in on their system. Okay. And talked to them about it, and they didn't know that I had talked to anyone else or anything like that. I'm just trying to get the load out and stuff. But right off the bat, I noticed the difference in pricing right away. It's higher, from what and I think that's where these guys come in, because Census is after the big cities, Chicago, New York, stuff. Zener comes in and fills that void, I think, is what I'm getting from this thing. Zener kind of comes in and fills that void to kind of supply to these smaller communities with a more reasonable price. And I think that's great. I think that's great. So we'll continue to talk to a couple other different systems. I know because that's going to be your first question to me. So we'll continue to talk to other. But so far, Zener has really impressed me, and that's why I had them come and talk to you guys. So,
how many of the communities around here do you service?
I have two systems locally at the time. Johnstown and Jefferson. Jefferson Water and Sewer District. And Black Lake is close to Gahanna. The one final thing, I guess,
it's close to Gahanna,
that I would like to mention is meter reading. So one of the things that you get with the fixed network, you can read the meters anytime that you want. As I mentioned earlier, it becomes a byproduct because the data is there. So if the first falls on a Saturday, you can wait until Monday, come in Monday, and whether you're reading 100 meters or 100,000 meters, it's a 2 or 3 minute process in order to collect reads and take a file from our billing system. You put it in here. It says, okay, those are the accounts I'm getting readings for. What dates you want? So you give it a date, and then it compiles all that information, makes you a file that you can send right back.
Billing. Can you tie that direct to billing so it would generate the billing without having to transfer the data to our current billing system? I mean, can you basically generate water bills?
Not with this system, but so our sister company, Manoa, they could actually take the data for you. They could generate the bills. They could mail the bills out to the customers. They could provide customer service for the bills. They can collect the revenue for you, and then just write you a check.
So, but for us, we would actually just have to take that reading and enter it like we do now to create the bill, right, John?
Right now, we used to do our own billing, but now we have a company called Smart Bill.
Right, they're doing it.
They do it now for us. It's a little company.
That's why we've got the building up there and down here.
Yeah. So basically, you just take that information and give it to Smart Bill, and Smart Bill does the bill.
I mean, it'd be great if the system, I don't know why you guys.
They can pretty much, if you want to get into this, they can pretty much do about anything you want to have.
Right, no, but I mean, for them to have that whole system, I think it'd be a great sales tool just to add the fact that, hey, we can link this right into, probably it'd be nothing for them to create that link to generate the invoice for the municipality. I think it'd be another great sales tool. I'm not trying to tell you guys how to subject your business. It'd be great for us to have that capability. Then we wouldn't have to pay Smart Bill to do our billing. Your system would automatically just print them out and be done. That'd be nice.
Well, I'm sure you charge something.
Well, no, but if it was built into the software, it would. Again, the same thing here. What's the return on investment if it could generate the invoice? It was just a thought.
We have ways to do a number of different things. It's just data. So, I can have it automatically export data for. I have actually some places they don't even use our website. We just send them the data directly, and it goes into billing. And they have a custom billing program that they built themselves, and we just send the meter reading data right into that.
That's another thing that I think we talked about that briefly, is we can actually have it sent directly to City Hall if you want to. Is that correct?
Yes. So
instead of a website that we go on, we can have it come directly.
It goes to any computer, so you could access it anywhere in the world as long as you have an internet connection. The meter reading data is available. For your end user customers, we can have them go to the city's website, and they can see their data that way too. But there's a lot of stuff. We have the data, so there's a lot of options, a lot of things that we can do with it.
So this is for 4,000 customers?
Yes.
How many do you have?
4,000. But what I kind of wanted to initiate was doing 2/3 that was not in the next year. Non-index use. We would do that first.
How many do you have?
That's 2,163.
I thought it was about 2,700.
Somewhere right in there.
I thought.
Somewhere between 2,000 and 2,700. I had that written down. That's for 4,000.
Yeah,
that's for the full system. So
this is 1740. Touchpad. It's still
21. Okay, sorry.
How many double meter places do you have?
Some places we have meters that have a outside meter where it's just for watering and stuff. Okay, yeah. Well, it's not really a deep. Well,
It's a sewer adjustment.
yeah, it's a sewer adjustment. So you're not paying sewer on that water being used.
You got something that will work for this?
Yeah, we would actually make it just another radio, and this is our radio unit. We would just attach another one of those to that. So each meter would have its own radio.
You got 100 of those around town,
And those are things we see other places. You know, the utilities generally charge the customers when they want those sewer type meters, or they want the deducts. They say, you know, here's Ferguson, that's all those. You know, go see them. They'll get you set up.
You guys do spot, for lack of a better term, calibration checks on these things and make sure they're accurately reading the meter?
So the way that the meters work, they're what's called an encoder meter. So it's sending a digital signal. So the radio, it queries the meter, and then the meter sends back the reading. The case where you get accuracy off is an age of the meters when they have worn. So I have for you a sample element that you can see.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I think what Jeff's saying is that they're gonna read from our existing meters that are
So
already.
if our meter's screwed up,
If your meter's screwed up,
it's gonna send an screwed up reading.
that's correct. But, I mean, I've been in way of water for 32 years, and what'll happen is I've never seen a meter speed up, it slows down. Okay, so you're gonna lose revenue by it slowing down over a period of time, and those need to be replaced, which we do on a periodic basis anyway.
So what's simply gonna
It's gonna
slow read?
whatever your meter's doing, this is gonna tell you, and bring it back here. This is what we've always had.
We do have the ability though to see that information like, as it's happening. You know, you can do trending, we can export data out, and you can have all that information now that you can look at and evaluate on a more regular basis if you wanted to. But typically the way that the meter works, so the reading that it's sending out is, I'd say, better than 99.59 accurate to what it says on the dials. What generally happens is they just stop giving out any sort of information at all. And in which case, if that happens, the glass will tell you that, hey, I queried that meter and I didn't get a response back from it. But the inaccuracy between the amount of water that flows through the meter versus the reading that it gets comes from these devices inside the meter wearing.
10-year, 12-year hardware, one?
This is a 10. You do a 10-year warranty that's full, and then 10-year prorated, which is industry standard. But the big difference between us is that we give you the option to replace the batteries in the field, which will cut down on costs during that proration phase of the warranty.
Now Brian's with Ferguson, and we'd actually be buying through you, Brian.
Correct.
So, I know it is manufactured. One other thing, does anyone have any other questions for Noah or Brandon? I'm sorry, that's it. Brandon. Okay, Brandon.
Thank you all very much for the opportunity to hang out.
Thanks for coming.
I did want to mention one thing. We do have 3 parcels that'll be turned in to Licking County Auditor. You're more than welcome to take a look at those, but I'd like to have permission to turn those in. More than welcome to look at them. I should have made more copies, but I was just given the copy.
Put pass around here.
We have to get it back. No, that's for you guys. Meeting adjourned.
420.